Welcome to Boring History for Sleep. Get comfy, relax, and enjoy the story till the end. And if you like it, don't forget to subscribe. The Roman senator wakes just as the first morning light glows through the linen curtains. The chirping of small birds can be heard faintly in the atrium beyond his sleeping quarters. He lies still on the soft woven mattress filled with straw and linen. The marble walls are cool to the touch, and the air smells faintly of olive oil and wax. There is no rush. The day will unfold slowly, as it always does. A servant tiptoes in without a word, pulling back the curtain slightly. The senator stretches his arms and closes his eyes again for a few seconds. He can already hear the quiet splash of water being poured into the washing bowl. No one speaks unless spoken to. That is the silent rule of the morning. The city outside is slowly waking up, but inside, time feels paused. He finally rises, placing his feet gently on the tiled floor. The servant offers a warm cloth to wipe his face and hands. No mirrors yet, just polished bronze. The senator examines his reflection, not for beauty but for routine. And the day, like all days, begins with silence. The washing bowl is made of bronze, slightly dented with years of use. The water is tepid, not too cold, not too warm, just enough to awaken the skin. The senator dips a linen cloth in and wipes his face slowly. He does not scrub, he glides. His hands move with the grace of ritual, not urgency. The servant stands quietly by, ready with a fresh towel, only the soft sound of cloth against skin, water against basin. A second servant brings in fresh oils for the senator's hair and arms. The senator applies a light amount, rubbing it gently into his temples. He will not bathe fully until midday. For now, it is just enough to feel prepared for a slow-moving, uneventful day. A folded white tunic lies neatly across a cedar chest. The senator steps into it slowly, allowing the servant to tie the thin belt. It is made of wool, cleaned and combed to be soft on the skin. The outer toga, a sign of his status, rests nearby. It is heavy and wide, made of layered fabric. The senator sits patiently as the servant folds and drapes it around his body. This process is long and deliberate. Every fold has its meaning. To outsiders, it might look like a costume, but to Romans, it is honor worn in fabric. Once dressed, he sits quietly at the window for a moment. The sun climbs higher, casting gold against the courtyard marble. No one knocks on his door that would be rude. Those who serve him simply wait nearby, attentive and silent. He picks up a scroll not to read, but to hold. Even that is part of the performance of daily life. Breakfast is not a meal of extravagance for the senator. It is simple bread with honey, perhaps a few dried figs. A clay cup holds watered-down wine, not for taste, but for hydration. The senator eats alone, seated near the small indoor fountain. The dripping water from the fountain plays a soft rhythm in the background. Servants move quietly, offering more bread with a slight bow. The senator does not speak. He only nods once in thanks. Birdsong outside echoes through the open ceiling of the atrium. There is no hurry, no schedule written in stone. The scroll beside him remains unopened, its words not urgent. A small dog curls up near his feet, yawning and closing its eyes again. Even the animals are slow this morning. The senator eats with small bites, chewing thoughtfully. After breakfast, he walks to the peristyle garden. It is a rectangular open space within the house, framed by columns, neatly trimmed hedges, and small marble statues line the edges. The senator walks slowly, hands behind his back, breathing deeply. The scent of rosemary and lavender grows stronger near the far wall. A servant gently sweeps leaves from the mosaic pathway. The senator stops and observes an ant crawling over a fig leaf. Everything is still. Even the wind seems respectful of the quiet. He pauses to run his fingers along a stone basin filled with water lilies. Reflections of clouds drift across the water's surface. This garden is not just beauty, it is a space for thinking nothing. No politics, no debates, just greenery and stone. A bird lands on the edge of the basin and takes a sip, unbothered. The senator closes his eyes and listens. This silence is older than the city itself. A scribe, his personal scribe, waits near the study room. The senator walks in slowly and sits on a wooden bench. The scribe unrolls a scroll and begins to read in a soft voice. The senator listens with eyes half closed, not for meaning, but rhythm. It is correspondence from a colleague in the countryside. Discussions about irrigation systems and olive production. Nothing urgent and certainly nothing exciting. Just the gentle current of Roman life flowing day by day. The scribe reads without inflection, his tone flat and smooth. Pigeons coo outside the window. A fly buzzes once and disappears into a shadowed corner. The senator gestures for the next scroll. This one contains a list of tributes collected from nearby farms. The senator nods once, then rests his chin on his palm. Another slow hour passes without drama. A quiet knock at the outer door. The house steward opens it and lets in a fellow senator. He is old, slow-moving, and speaks in a hushed tone. They greet each other with a clasp of hands, nothing more. The two men sit beneath a shaded colonnade. They speak of the weather, the dust in the streets, the reliability of certain servants. No politics, no emotion, only murmured observations. Their sandals scrape softly against the tiled floor as they shift. A servant brings water in a bronze jug, pouring without sound. Neither man drinks immediately, they wait until the water settles. This visit has no agenda, no purpose but presence. Sometimes Rome speaks through silence, not speeches. They sit for a while longer, then part without farewells, a nod, a soft grunt of acknowledgement. And the senator is alone once more. The senator walks slowly through the long hallway of ancestral statues. Each marble bust rests on a high pedestal, lit by sunlight through thin windows. He stops at each one, his father, his grandfather, even distant great-uncles. The stone faces stare back in silence, eyes unmoving but familiar. He places a hand gently on one, then moves to the next. This is not worship, it is memory made solid. The hallway is cold, the marble keeps the temperature steady. Footsteps echo gently, softened by woven rugs. A spider's web catches the light near the corner of one statue's ear. He does not brush it away, it belongs here now. The senator breathes slowly as he walks, not remembering specific events, just feeling the presence of time. This family has always lived slowly, with dignity and boredom. Even in silence, legacy speaks. He bows his head once, then turns back. The sun has reached its highest point. The senator returns to his room for the midday rest. He changes into a lighter tunic and lies on a padded bench. The windows are half shuttered, letting in only soft light. The servant fans him gently with a palm leaf. There is no conversation, no music, just stillness. Sleep comes, not all at once, but like drifting leaves outside. The city continues, but he does not care. The fan slows, then stops, as the servant steps out. The senator's breathing is deep, steady, slow. A dreamless nap begins, wrapped in heat and still air. No sounds disturb him, even the birds seem to wait. This rest is not luxury, it is tradition, an old rhythm, older than memory. The house breathes quietly with him, wrapped in heat and still air. No sound. When he wakes, the bath has been prepared. He walks slowly to the private chamber, where steam curls through the door. The caldarium is warm, the stone benches radiating heat. He steps into the shallow water, sitting carefully. The silence is complete, only the occasional drip of condensation. No other voices, no chatter, just breath and water. He leans back, eyes closed, letting time slip. The senator does not think of laws or money, he thinks of nothing. That is the point. The water smells faintly of herbs, thyme, and basil. His skin prickles from the heat, then relaxes again. This is the closest thing to peace a Roman can own. The bath is not just for cleanliness, it is a temple to boredom. He stays until the water cools, and only then does he rise. The senator steps out of the bath slowly, letting the air wrap around his warm skin. A servant offers a thick linen cloth, folded and warmed by the sun earlier. He dries his arms first, then his chest, then carefully his feet. No words are spoken. The servant knows the rhythm of this moment. Another servant brings a fresh tunic, clean and lightly scented with lavender. The senator raises his arms, allowing the garment to fall smoothly over him. The soft wool scratches slightly at the neck, but is otherwise comforting. He sits on a small stool as the servant adjusts the folds at the waist. Everything is deliberate, without haste. A bronze mirror is offered once again, and he glances at his face briefly, not to admire but simply to note the passage of time. His hair is combed flat, oiled just slightly to stay in place. A ring is slid onto his finger, not for decoration, but identity. He nods once, satisfied, then stands without a sound. Another part of the quiet day is complete. The library room smells of old papyrus and dry dust. Scrolls line the shelves in neat rows, each labeled with faded ink. The senator enters without ceremony, brushing his fingers along the edges of old titles. He selects one, a philosophical essay by Cicero. Perhaps he doesn't intend to read much, only a few lines to calm the mind. He unrolls the scroll slowly, letting it settle across the reading desk. The Latin script flows gently like water on stone. He reads in silence, eyes moving slowly, lips not moving. Each sentence is like a breath, long, calm, ancient. Outside, a bird calls once, then falls quiet again. The servant leaves the room, closing the wooden door without a sound. The senator turns the scroll slightly, continuing to read without urgency. His thoughts do not race, they drift. He reads until the sun shifts, casting a new shadow across the floor. Then he places the scroll back on the shelf, precisely where it belongs. The senator walks through the central part of the domus, his city house. He moves slowly, pausing to notice cracks in the mosaic tiles. A servant waits nearby with a wax tablet, ready to record any repairs needed. The senator says very little, only gestures or short phrases. Crack here, loose hinge dust the statue. These are not complaints, just observations in the ritual of maintenance. The large atrium remains clean, its pool reflecting the afternoon sky. Statues of gods stand silently in their corners, unchanged by the seasons. He touches one column gently, noting the coolness of the stone. Nothing needs to be rushed. The house will stand another century. He moves through the triclinium, where meals are sometimes held. The couches are in place, the cushions fluffed neatly. Even in his own home, order matters. Before leaving the room, he straightens a single flower in its vase, then continues on, one soft step at a time. In the study once again, the scribe returns with fresh scrolls. There are messages from the Senate, updates on new taxes and roadwork. The senator listens but does not speak much. Most of it is routine, the kind that passes through without memory. A governor in the east has sent a long list of complaints. The scribe reads it in a flat, even tone. Without emotion, a crow caws outside, startling no one. The senator taps a finger on the table once, then again, he finally says. Write a reply noted, will consider. The scribe nods, dips his stylus in ink, and records it on wax. Another scroll discusses a minor legal matter in the courts. The senator simply says, let it proceed. No arguments, no passion, just the quiet rhythm of Roman governance. The scrolls are tied with cord and placed aside for later. As the sun begins to dip, a light refreshment is served. A wooden tray holds slices of pear, figs, and soft cheese. A clay cup contains warm water flavored with mint. The senator sits near the garden once again, under the shade of vines. Birds return to the trees, chattering softly before dusk. He picks at the fruit slowly, not for hunger but habit. The sweetness is light, pleasant, not overpowering. His fingers remain clean, wiping once with a damp cloth. A breeze stirs the leaves, sending shadows across the stone. The dog from earlier returns, curling beneath the bench. The senator reaches down to pat its head once, gently. He closes his eyes for a few moments between bites. Time slows even more in these hours. This is not a meal, it is a pause. A reminder to remain still. As daylight fades, the house begins to glow with soft lamplight. Oil lamps are lit one by one, each placed in its usual position. A servant walks from room to room, flame in hand, lighting carefully. The senator follows, watching the transformation of the space. Shadows grow longer, more defined against the marble walls. The flames flicker gently, casting warm circles of light. The air now smells faintly of olive oil and smoke. This part of the day is never rushed. It feels sacred. No loud voices, no harsh movement, only the soft whisper of fire. The senator checks that each lamp is steady, well filled, and placed securely. He nods as he moves from corridor to corridor, approving the work. The atrium looks different now, its pool reflecting small lights above. Even the statues seem warmer in the glow. It is a slow descent into night, and he feels it in his bones. His wife enters the main hall, dressed in soft linen robes. She does not speak at first, simply sits beside him on the stone bench. Together they watch the lamplight dance on the columns. After a while, she says something about the neighbor's garden. He replies softly, just a few words, with a small nod. Their conversation flows like water down smooth stone, gentle and slow. They talk of nothing urgent, just the passing of the seasons. The grapevine is late to bloom this year. The baker's son seems taller than before. She mentions a new cloth pattern seen at the market. He murmurs, "We should order some next week. That is the longest sentence he speaks this hour." She smiles faintly, then falls silent again. It is the kind of silence only old comfort can bring, and it fills the room more than words ever could. Near the lararium, the small shrine in the corner of the house, the senator stands still. A servant brings a tray with offerings, a bit of bread, fruit, and wine. He places the food gently near the small figurines of household gods. His movements are slow, respectful, almost meditative. He does not pray aloud, he only bows his head slightly. The gods need no grand ceremony, just memory and respect. A candle burns near the shrine, its light steady and calm. Smoke curls upward in a lazy spiral. The senator places his hand on his chest briefly, then steps back. The offering will remain until morning, untouched. It is not about belief, it is about tradition. Even the most powerful Romans honor their ancestors quietly. He looks once more at the shrine before turning away. Another moment passed, like so many before it, and the house feels more settled than before. Before retiring, the senator walks through the house one last time. He glances at each door, each curtain, each polished corner. The dogs are in their resting places, the servants in their quarters. The lamps burn evenly, none flickering or near empty. He runs a finger along a table, checking for dust. Not because he is strict, but because he respects order. A chair is slightly out of place, he adjusts it silently. The fountain still bubbles softly in the atrium, a lullaby in water. He leans against a column briefly, eyes closed. There is no urgency to sleep, only the rhythm of preparation. He listens for any strange sound, but hears only calm. Satisfied, he nods to himself. The house has done its duty today, and now it is time for stillness. He turns slowly toward his chamber. Inside his chamber, the senator finds everything as it should be. The bed has been turned down, the linen smoothed flat, a cup of warm herbal water rests on a small table. He removes his ring and places it in a shallow dish. The outer tunic is carefully folded and set aside. He steps into soft sandals made for nighttime. The candle near the bed flickers gently, its flame steady and low. He drinks slowly from the cup, the taste bitter but calming. No servants remain, he is alone now. He sits on the edge of the bed, stretching once more, then lies down, back straight, arms resting at his sides. The ceiling above is dark, but not silent. Night insects hum softly beyond the walls. He closes his eyes without effort. The day has ended without noise, and sleep, like everything else in his life, arrives quietly. Midnight settles over the Roman city like a warm, dark cloth. The streets beyond the villa grow quieter, with only distant hooves echoing now and then. Inside, the air is motionless, heavy with the scent of stone and wax. The senator sleeps on his back, breathing deeply, unmoving. His room is dim but not completely dark. One candle still burns near the door. Its light flickers gently, casting long shadows across the walls. A night breeze stirs the curtain once, then rests again. Nothing stirs in the house, even the servants dream in silence. The marble floors are cool and empty. The household gods remain watchful in their corner. A soft creak of wood in the rafters is the only sound for many minutes. The dog shifts once in its sleep and sighs beyond the gates. Rome dreams too slowly, anciently, without haste. Nothing rushes, nothing shouts. It is the deepest part of night, where time forgets to move. Outside the main villa, the household watchman makes his rounds. He carries a small oil lamp in one hand, a wooden staff in the other. His sandals scrape softly against the stones as he walks. Each step echoes faintly through the covered courtyard. He does not hurry. There is no danger, only duty. The flame in his lamp dances with each movement, casting slow-moving shapes on the wall. He pauses at each doorway, listening for sounds that never come. The air is cooler now, touched by the breath of dawn. He adjusts his wool cloak around his shoulders and continues. A bat flutters once across the open roof, then disappears. The sky beyond the villa begins to shift, dark blue giving way to grey. The watchman stops at the front gate and listens again. Only silence answers. He turns slowly, satisfied, and walks back the way he came. Another night, quiet and whole. Just before dawn, a lone bird sings from the top of a tiled roof. Its song is soft, uncertain at first, then steadier with each note. The sound travels through the open atrium, brushing against sleeping ears. Inside his chamber, the senator stirs slightly but does not wake. The world around him prepares for light without asking permission. The trees begin to rustle as if shaking off their dreams. A servant in the kitchen stretches, then moves to stoke the morning fire. There are no loud movements, only the small rituals of beginning water pours gently into a clay pot. Firewood crackles faintly. A breeze lifts the scent of herbs from the garden, sending it through the halls. Stillness is slowly exchanged for quiet movement. The sky outside turns the color of ash, then peach. The bird continues singing, joined now by another nearby. And in the still shadows of the house, the day quietly begins again, as if it never stopped. Senator's eyes open softly, not startled, but aware. He lies still for a moment, sensing the return of light beyond his eyelids. The fabric of his sleeping robe rustles as he shifts slightly. A servant enters the chamber without a word, carrying a bowl of warm water. Another servant adjusts the curtain, letting in the soft golden morning. The senator breathes in deeply the scent of ash, wax, and lavender. There is no urgency in his movement, only practice. He sits up slowly, feet resting on the cool stone floor. The room remains hushed, untouched by the outside city. The candle has burned low, almost out, its job done for the night. The servant offers a cloth, and the senator wipes his hands and face. Another day, identical to the last, stretches quietly ahead. There is comfort in the repetition, in the expected rhythm. He rises without speaking, his joints stiff but steady. The ancient day restarts its gentle cycle. As the senator sits by the window, his steward enters with a wax tablet. He bows lightly, holding the tablet in both hands, waiting to speak. The senator nods once, giving permission without words. The steward begins to list the day's minor matters. A request from the baker for permission to adjust his stall's location. A note that the olive shipment arrived late in the night. A small complaint from a neighbor about dust from the senator's workers. Each item is presented slowly, calmly, without emotion. The senator listens with a blank expression, occasionally nodding. He gives simple responses. Yes. Tell them to wait. Have it cleaned. The steward scribbles on the wax with his stylus, recording each word. No decisions are urgent. Nothing demands stress. This is not governance by power. It is management by quiet persistence. The steward bows again and leaves just as gently. The senator closes his eyes, letting silence return. The day remains peaceful, untouched by conflict. Senator steps into the peristyle garden once more, a bowl of crumbs in hand. He walks slowly along the path, scattering pieces near the fountain edge. Small birds flutter down from the walls and nearby branches, chirping softly. They peck at the crumbs without fear. They know this man. He watches them with passive interest, not joy, not boredom. Their wings flash in the morning sun, quick shadows across the stone tiles. The fountain trickles steadily, never rushing dot. He kneels briefly to refill a shallow bird bowl with fresh water. The act is simple, but precise part of his daily rhythm leaves rustle as another breeze passes through. One bird lands near his sandal, tilts its head, and hops away. The senator says nothing, only watches. This is not entertainment. It is quiet companionship, a shared moment with creatures that expect nothing. And somehow that is enough. Back in the study, the senator is handed a scroll with foreign markings. It has arrived from a distant province, dusty from travel. He unrolls it gently, the parchment stiff and dry. The letter is written in careful Latin, words shaped with effort. It speaks of harvest totals, grain shipments, and minor temple repairs. There is no complaint, no praise, just factual updates. The senator reads each line slowly, absorbing its bland honesty. He notes the rainfall measurements, the yield of olive trees. He marks a passage with a short line of charcoal. Nothing in the message requires immediate response. Still, it must be read, understood, remembered. He finishes, rolls the scroll back, and ties it shut. He places it in the reed basket on the shelf. Another task completed without fanfare. The study falls silent once again. In the lower kitchens, the smell of roasting barley and fish drifts upward. It moves slowly through the villa's long hallways. The senator does not look toward the kitchen, he simply waits. A servant arrives with a simple tray salted fish, olives, and flatbread. The senator nods and gestures toward the atrium. They walk together in silence to the shaded seating area. The tray is placed gently on the marble table. He eats without words, using his hands carefully and neatly. There is no discussion, no distraction. Even eating is a ritual, slow, methodical, measured. The bread is warm, the fish slightly bitter. He chews each bite thoroughly before swallowing. Water is offered from a clay jug, cool and clean. The servant steps back, allowing him space. Another ordinary meal in an ordinary day. To the meal, the senator remains seated beneath the colonnade. He watches the way the shadows move across the floor tiles. Each column casts a slow-moving stripe of shade. The sun does not rush, and neither does he. He folds his hands in his lap and leans slightly back. The warmth of midday presses gently against his face. A fly buzzes near but does not land. Somewhere nearby, a broom sweeps the hallway. The noise is soft, rhythmic, and distant. He listens to it without thought, like hearing waves. The shadows stretch longer, inch by inch. This is not waiting, it is being. No plans, no goals, just light and time sharing the same space. And a man who has nothing left to chase. Pala feels empty, though it is not. Voices are absent, replaced by the hush of warm air. Even the birds have fallen quiet in the heat. The senator walks back to his chamber, slowly, deliberately. He removes his sandals and lies once again on the resting bench. A servant places a damp cloth on his forehead, then disappears. His hands rest flat on his chest, fingers relaxed. The ceiling above holds no design, only white stone. He stares at it, not thinking, not dreaming. This hour belongs to stillness and nothing else. No business, no memory, no plans, just breath, slow and measured. Sleep does not come quickly, but neither is it needed. The senator exists, and that is enough. Another moment in the long, quiet life of Rome. The senator's afternoon stroll continued through the Forum Romanum, the beating heart of political Rome. Stone-paved roads echoed under his sandals as he passed marble statues of past consuls and legendary generals. The scent of fresh olive oil from nearby vendors mixed with dust and chatter from the crowds. He was occasionally stopped by citizens offering petitions or local merchants seeking political favors. His face remained passive, trained by years of public scrutiny and careful diplomacy. He bowed politely, his nods calculated to seem sincere without obligation. A group of children ran past, playing with wooden toys, their laughter slicing through the afternoon haze. The senator smiled briefly, reminded of his own grandchildren who were often kept in the countryside. At the temple of Saturn, he paused and offered a short prayer, not out of piety, but tradition. The cool columns of the temple cast long shadows on the tiled ground beneath. He admired the architectural symmetry, remembering the years spent funding restorations. For Romans, legacy was everything, not just what you built, but how long it remained. An aide caught up to him, whispering about a minor revolt in a province he barely remembered. The senator waved it off. Rebellions were frequent and often resolved before the Senate ever convened. In his mind, the weight of empire had become as casual as the toga he wore daily. After the walk, he returned home just as the sun began to lower across the Tiber dot. His villa, located on the Aventine Hill, stood in quiet elegance, surrounded by olive trees. Slaves had prepared the evening bath, a tepid soak infused with lavender and rosemary. The senator undressed slowly, his joints creaking like old wood, and stepped into the stone tub. The warm water loosened his tired muscles and quieted his thoughts. Servants scrubbed his back with soft brushes, while he closed his eyes and meditated on the day's dealings. In the silence of the bath, he sometimes imagined what life might be like outside of Rome. He thought of Greece, of Egypt, of provinces where senators were treated like gods. Still, something always tied him to Rome, not loyalty, but legacy. A marble bust of his father stood near the bath, forever watching, forever judging. The senator traced the same furrowed brow in his own reflection on the water's surface. Steam filled the air, masking the scent of oil and age and old regrets. For a moment, he felt ageless, weightless, floating on memories he barely understood. But then came the knock, a slave announcing the evening meal. He sighed, pulled from the warmth like a prisoner, summoned back to court. The dining room was dimly lit with oil lamps, flickering like little stars against painted walls. Reclining on a cushioned couch, the senator positioned himself for the meal, as tradition dictated. Tonight's fare was modest olives, flatbread, smoked fish, figs, and watered wine. A musician played a soft melody on a lyre in the corner, more for rhythm than entertainment. His wife sat across from him, older now, her once fiery eyes dulled with years of propriety. They spoke little. Theirs was a marriage of arrangement and endurance, not romance. Their children were grown, pursuing careers of their own in politics and the military occasionally. Their conversation touched on temple donations, local gossip, or family alliances. The senator enjoyed the wine more than the food, sipping slowly, savoring the silence. He listened to the subtle sounds of silverware, the quiet shuffling of servants behind curtains. This meal was a ritual, not an experience, a necessary pause before sleep and another day. Through the window, the last of the sun faded behind rooftops and distant hills. For a man of power, the quietest moments were also the most treasured. He rarely laughed anymore, but tonight, something about the fig's sweetness brought a faint smile. It reminded him of simpler times, or perhaps just of being young and easily pleased. After dinner, the senator retired to his private study, a room lined with scrolls and silence. The air smelled of wax, ink, and old parchment, a scent that felt both sacred and secure. He lit a small lamp, its glow illuminating the shelves of records, letters, and decrees. Sitting at a low wooden table, he opened a scroll, Cicero's Orations perhaps, or Livy's Histories. His reading was methodical, less for pleasure and more to keep his mind sharpened. Outside, the city began to quiet, the distant murmur of taverns barely reaching the window. Occasionally, the senator dipped his stylus into ink to jot thoughts in the margins. A servant entered quietly to place a fig-scented candle and departed without a word. These nighttime readings were his ritual, a slow descent into stillness before sleep. Sometimes he thought of speeches he would never give, reforms he would never propose. He had learned that Rome moved like a river, wide, slow, and immune to one man's paddle. Still, writing gave him a sense of permanence, as though the page would remember what history would not. He paused often, rubbing his temples, drifting between words and weariness. The scroll finally slipped from his hands, and he let it rest on the table like a sleeping dog. The hour grew late, and the shadows in the corners of the study deepened. From his study, the senator stepped into the courtyard barefoot, robe loose at the shoulders. The night sky over Rome sparkled faintly, stars dulled by lantern smoke and city haze. A breeze whispered through the olive trees, carrying scents of laurel and distant hearth fires. He sat by the fountain, its gentle trickle soothing his thoughts like a lullaby. This was the hour he treasured most, when Rome finally slept and stopped pretending. He traced the rim of the fountain with a wrinkled finger, counting thoughts instead of coins. The moon reflected in the water, trembling with every ripple, like uncertain memories. He remembered the first time he entered the Senate, young, arrogant, full of speeches. Now he barely spoke in sessions. His wisdom was in knowing when to remain silent. A cat padded across the stones, paused, and blinked at him before disappearing into the dark. In that moment, he envied the cat, free of titles, free of legacy, but he knew his place was carved in marble, not freedom. He whispered a soft prayer to no particular god, just the air. Tonight, he did not wish for power, or gold, or praise, just peace. And for now, the night gave it freely. As the senator walked slowly through the colonnade of his private courtyard, his sandals made soft scuffing sounds on the polished stone. The shade from the overhanging grapevines cooled the air, and dappled sunlight flickered gently on the marble walls. He passed a small fountain shaped like a dolphin, where the water splashed quietly, like a lullaby. He paused for a moment, running his fingers over the stone basin, feeling the smoothness of centuries-old craftsmanship nearby. A servant trimmed a potted laurel tree with careful hands, each snip deliberate and quiet. The senator watched him, not speaking, simply appreciating the rhythm of mundane life. He moved on toward the library, where rows of scrolls waited silently in cedar shelves. Each scroll was tied with a thin leather strip and labeled with delicate handwriting in Latin. He reached for one titled On the Virtues of Patience, a favorite for late afternoons. He sat in a cushioned wooden chair and began to read, the words calming and methodical. Outside, cicadas hummed in the distance, their buzz soft behind the thick stone walls. A small breeze stirred through the open window, bringing with it the smell of rosemary from the garden. He paused again, not to think, but just to sit still, something few ever learned to enjoy. His world was ruled by politics, but here, in this quiet space, nothing rushed. Everything slowed down, just as it should in the long Roman afternoon. His eyes traced the slow-moving script as he read, not for study, but for peace. The words weren't particularly exciting, but they held the kind of depth that came from years of reflection. He imagined the philosopher who had written them, likely sitting under a tree just as he was now. There was something soothing in the thought that life had always been this slow, in some corners of the world. He closed the scroll, not finishing it, because there was no rush to understand everything today. He leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking softly under his weight. From far off, he could hear the faint clatter of hooves as a cart passed on the road beyond his estate. The rhythm of Roman life had its own heartbeat, unhurried, deeply rooted in tradition. A servant entered quietly with a tray of dates and chilled wine, placing it on a small table. He nodded silently in thanks and picked up a date, chewing slowly, savoring its sweetness. The wine was slightly watered, as was custom, cool and refreshing in the summer heat. He sipped, then stared at the ceiling for a moment, watching how shadows shifted as the sun dipped lower. Soon it would be time for the evening meeting, but not yet. The day was long. The senator allowed himself to do nothing for a while longer, and in that nothingness he felt most human. Sometimes boredom wasn't a problem, it was a privilege only the powerful could afford. Eventually, a soft knock came from the door, a polite reminder that evening was approaching. He stood slowly, his joints stiff but his mind still calm, and made his way to his dressing chamber. His evening toga, freshly pressed, was laid out by his attendant, made of a softer wool than the one for court. Changing clothes was a slow ritual, not rushed, with each fold carefully adjusted. He looked in the polished bronze mirror, not to admire, but to check that his public face was in order. The lines around his eyes were deeper now than in his youth, but they added a kind of dignity. He fastened a small pin with the emblem of his family, a lion holding a branch of olive dot. Then, he lit a cone of incense, a tradition before stepping out into the public eye again. The fragrance of frankincense filled the air, gentle and warm, like the fading day. Outside, the sky had turned a shade of amber, clouds stretched like parchment across the horizon. He stepped into his sandals again, now worn soft from years of use, and nodded to his house steward. Two guards fell into place behind him as he walked toward the outer gate of the villa. The city streets would still be warm from the day, the stones holding on to the sun's heat. The senator took a deep breath, soaking in the silence of his estate one last time. Evenings in Rome were their own kind of quiet performance, and he was ready for the stage. The senator's litter awaited outside, carried by 6 strong men, its canopy embroidered with his family's crest. He stepped inside carefully, settling into the velvet cushions as the bearers lifted him up. The motion was slow and gentle, like a cradle, rocking steadily as they moved toward the city center. From within the curtains, he watched glimpses of Rome pass by columns, arches, and slow-moving citizens. Children played in alleyways, and old women swept their doorsteps with straw brooms. The soundscape had changed, more voices now, more movement, but still nothing urgent. They passed the bakery, the smell of fresh bread still clinging to the air despite the hour. He remembered briefly a time when he used to walk these streets instead of riding above them. The city looked different from above. Distant, a little dreamlike, almost unreal. The litter paused at a busy intersection, allowing a group of cattle to cross. He didn't mind the delay. No one in Rome ever really hurried. A street musician played a slow tune on a reed flute nearby, the notes dancing lazily on the evening air. A small crowd had gathered, and the senator watched them, unseen, from behind the curtain. There was something calming in knowing the city went on with or without him, and that tonight, as every night, history would be written in silence, not in speeches. Finally, the litter reached the steps of the Curia Julia, the Senate's grand meeting hall. He stepped out slowly, the coolness of the marble floor greeting his sandaled feet. Torches flickered along the columns, casting long shadows like sentinels from another time. A few other senators were already gathering, speaking softly in pairs and groups. No one shouted, no one rushed. Even debate here moved like the Tiber, slow and sure. He nodded greetings, then climbed the stairs with careful steps, each one echoing slightly. Inside, the great hall was dimly lit, scrolls and records stacked in wooden crates along the edges. He took his usual seat, third from the front on the right, where he had sat for nearly 15 years. The room settled into a hush as the presiding magistrate entered, signaling the session's start. A clerk began reading the day's docket, his voice flat but steady, like the ticking of an invisible clock. Discussions would follow, not heated but thoughtful, shaped by ritual and old agreements. The senator folded his hands in his lap and leaned back, ready to listen more than speak. The chamber was a place of words, but also of pauses, long silences that carried weight. Outside, the Roman night deepened, quiet and immense, wrapping the city in ancient calm, and inside, under torchlight and tradition, the slow pulse of the Republic continued beating. As the senator walks through the forum, the sun begins to dip lower, casting golden light over the marble columns. He pauses for a moment to admire a statue of Jupiter, worn from years of prayers and sacrifices. People pass by him. Some bow slightly, others give a courteous nod of respect. He returns the gestures with calm dignity, a soft smile on his face. The forum is still lively, but a hush is settling over the city. He sees a group of young students reciting Cicero's speeches under the guidance of a stern teacher. Their voices echo lightly against the stone, a comforting rhythm of learning passed through centuries. He closes his eyes for a moment, remembering his own youth in the same place. His tutor had been strict but fair, teaching not only rhetoric but virtue. Now, he finds it comforting to watch others continue the tradition. The scent of roasted nuts and honey bread floats on the evening air. Vendors begin packing up their carts, tying up bundles and counting coins. A flute player sits near a pillar, playing soft melodies that rise with the breeze. Children run by, laughing and chasing a small wooden hoop across the stones. Everything feels calm, ancient, and unchanged, just as Rome has always been. He continues walking, his pace slow and measured, his sandals gently slapping against the stone. The streets are familiar. Each crack in the pavement holds a memory. He passes a baker sweeping flour from his doorstep, the smell of warm bread still lingering. The senator nods, and the baker bows slightly with flour-dusted hands. Further down, a young woman feeds pigeons near the temple of Vesta, humming quietly to herself. The pigeons flutter up as he nears, then settle again in the quiet. He turns onto a side street shaded by grapevines and thick stone walls. It's quieter here, the buzz of the city fading into soft whispers. He pauses to watch a boy draw in the dust with a stick, his imagination running wild. The senator smiles, remembering his own sons at that age, full of questions and dreams. A cat slinks across the path and it disappears into a doorway without a sound. A man waters the plants on his balcony above, sending tiny droplets down to sparkle in the light dot. Everything is slow and peaceful, like the whole city is preparing to sleep. Even the wind seems to sigh, brushing gently against his robes. He finds comfort in the stillness, in the gentle rhythm of Roman life. As he approaches his home, the gates open with a creak, and the familiar smell of olive oil and fresh herbs welcomes him. A servant bows low and guides him toward the atrium, his footsteps light and practiced. Inside, the walls are decorated with painted murals, scenes of Neptune's oceans and Apollo's light. The water in the central fountain trickles softly, adding a calming background to the quiet. He sets his scrolls down on a marble table, carefully aligning them in neat rows. Another servant brings him a cup of watered wine, just the way he prefers, cool and mild. He sits on a cushioned bench, his back resting against soft silk pillows. Outside the open windows, the sounds of evening birds mix with distant voices from the street. The golden rays of sunset reach in, casting warm shadows on the mosaic floor. His wife enters, dressed in a flowing stola, her presence serene and comforting. They share a quiet smile, no words needed after so many years together. She sits beside him, and they sip their wine in silence, watching the light change. A small breeze stirs the curtains, and the scent of basil and rosemary floats and servants move quietly in the background, lighting small oil lamps one by one. Night begins to fall over Rome, and peace settles gently over the house. Dinner is prepared in the triclinium, where 3 couches form a half-circle around a low table. The senator and his family recline as platters of figs, cheese, and warm lentils are brought forth. A soft harp plays in the corner, an enslaved musician plucking gentle melodies. They eat slowly without rush, savoring each bite and the comfort of routine. Conversation flows quietly, the children speak of their lessons. His wife shares news from the market. He listens more than he speaks, his mind calm and reflective. The flicker of oil lamps dances across the walls, casting shadows that sway like gentle ghosts. A slave pours more wine, careful not to spill a drop, trained in silent service. After the meal, they enjoy honey-sweetened cakes and fresh fruit cooled in snow. The senator's youngest daughter recites a poem she memorized, her voice shy but steady. Applause follows, gentle and warm, and she beams with quiet pride. The night outside deepens to a navy blue, and stars begin to blink above the rooftops. The sounds of the city fade almost entirely, only a dog barking in the distance now and then. The senator feels full, not just with food but with a sense of belonging. This is what life has come to mean: simple, sacred, and shared with those he loves. After dinner, he returns to the tablinum, his private study, quiet and lined with scrolls. A small bronze lamp glows beside his writing table, casting golden light across the parchment. He unrolls a scroll of philosophy, a favorite by Seneca, and begins to read slowly. The words are familiar, almost like an old friend speaking through time. He pauses after each sentence, letting the ideas settle gently in his mind. Outside the window, the chirping of crickets creates a lullaby of nature. The servant who lit the lamp steps out quietly, closing the wooden door behind him. The senator dips a reed pen into ink and writes a few lines of his own thoughts. He writes not for politics now, but for peace, his private musings on life, death, and duty. The words come slowly, carefully, shaped by years of experience and quiet reflection. As he writes, he feels the tension of the day melt away like wax from a candle. The pages fill with quiet wisdom, simple truths, and a deep sense of calm. He sets the pen down and leans back, eyes closed, breathing slowly. A soft gust of wind stirs the scrolls on the table, whispering through the room. He smiles to himself. Just another quiet night in the eternal city. As the sun sank lower, casting a golden hue across Rome's marble temples, Senator Quintus slowly walked back toward his residence. The streets were quieter now, a contrast to the bustling day's earlier chaos, and the distant sound of a flute echoed softly in the air. He passed vendors packing up their stalls, children playing with wooden toys, and elderly men debating politics under fading sunlight. The smell of roasted chestnuts and oil lamps mixing with evening dew filled the atmosphere with comforting familiarity. Quintus nodded to a local blacksmith who was cooling his tools in water, sparks still glowing from a final forge. Everything about this moment reminded him that Rome was not just powerful, it was deeply human, rooted in routines and rituals. His feet carried the weight of the day, but his heart remained light, fulfilled by a life dedicated to duty and tradition. The thick tunic clung to his skin slightly in the evening humidity, and he looked forward to changing into something looser. A servant ran ahead to open the gates to his domus, their footsteps echoing off the stone pathway. Passing through the archway, Quintus smelled incense again, sweet and grounding, drifting from the central altar. He removed his sandals at the threshold, feeling the coolness of the mosaic floor under his calloused feet. A small dog barked excitedly at his return, its tail wagging as it followed him into the peristyle courtyard. Water trickled gently from a fountain shaped like a dolphin, adding a soft, sleepy rhythm to the setting. In the stillness, Quintus paused, took a deep breath, and simply listened to Rome breathing with him. The city was quiet now, but it never truly slept. Dinner was prepared and served in the triclinium, where couches formed a U-shape around a low table. Quintus reclined with a cushion under his elbow, sipping watered wine as servants brought dishes in careful procession. There were figs stuffed with goat cheese, grilled fish glazed with honey, lentils with cumin, and fresh olives. A musician played a gentle tune on the kithara in the corner, providing background music like wind brushing through trees. He ate slowly, chewing thoughtfully, taking breaks to discuss philosophical topics with his son Marcus seated beside him. They spoke of duty, of honor, of Cicero's writings, and whether truth could ever be fully understood by man. Every course brought not just nourishment, but a piece of culture, as food was an extension of Roman identity. He praised the cook for the balance of flavors, and smiled as his daughter poured him more wine, laughing softly. A light-hearted debate erupted about the stars. Whether they were divine messengers or just celestial fires, Quintus delighted in these talks, not for their answers, but for the way they stretched the mind just before rest. The family laughed together as dessert, honey cakes and almonds, was served, warm and fragrant. Oil lamps flickered gently on the walls, casting soft shadows like sleepy dancers on marble. It was the kind of evening that made life feel whole, simple, warm, and deeply Roman. No crowds, no politics, just the serenity of family and timeless customs. As dinner ended, he felt his soul calm further, preparing for the final chapter of the day. After dinner, Quintus stepped outside again, this time into his private garden behind the house. It was small but elegant, with neatly pruned shrubs, 2 tall cypress trees, and a few vines hanging from trellises. A statue of Minerva stood watch in one corner, serene and graceful in the moonlight dot. He often came here to think, to let his mind unravel in the hush of night, where even Rome seemed to whisper. Crickets chirped, a breeze rustled the leaves, and the faint scent of roses lingered from the day's warmth. Sitting on a stone bench, he closed his eyes and reflected on all he had done and all still left undone. Not every law passed, not every voice heard, but he had tried, as a senator, as a Roman, as a man. He thought of the Republic's future, of the Senate's integrity, and whether his grandson would one day sit where he had. Above him, stars blinked softly, ancient and unbothered, and the full moon looked like a coin tossed from the gods. Time felt suspended here, as if Rome's greatness lived forever in this quiet little garden corner. He ran his fingers across the stone seat, worn smooth by years of habit, etched with the invisible marks of thought. The world outside was complex and ever-changing, but here, in the quiet of his own vines and stone, it was still. This was the part of the day he cherished the most, his private temple of silence. Even the house behind him seemed to hush its breathing as the senator sat with the night. And so he remained for a while, just watching, just listening, just being. Eventually, the night air grew cooler, and the stars above shifted slightly as time passed. Quintus rose from the bench, his joints stiff but his mind softened, like parchment warmed by flame. Inside the house, lamps had been dimmed, and most of the servants had retired to their quarters. He walked slowly toward his sleeping chamber, his shadow long and gentle behind him. The room was modest, not grand, but calming, with woven blankets and carved wooden furniture. A small altar sat in one corner where he placed a drop of oil and whispered a prayer of thanks. He undressed carefully, folding his clothes and setting them on a chest at the foot of the bed. Climbing under the linen sheets, he settled his head on a feather-filled cushion, exhaling deeply. His wife was already asleep, her face relaxed in peaceful dreams, the soft sound of her breath rhythmic and sweet. The house seemed to exhale with him, like the city had passed a long, slow sigh through its walls. He looked up at the wooden ceiling beams, tracing their patterns in the dim glow of a dying lamp. Each night, he felt closer to something eternal. His ancestors, the gods, the idea of Rome itself. The senator closed his eyes, thoughts slowing like a river nearing stillness, drifting toward sleep. No more debates, no more decisions, just the quiet embrace of darkness and rest. And like that, he surrendered to night. His day closed like a scroll upon a marble desk. And so the day of a Roman senator, grand in its simplicity and deep in tradition, came to an end. From morning greetings in marble halls to night whispers in moonlit gardens, every moment had meaning. He had walked among the people, listened to senators, and spoken for the Republic, yet found peace in silence. The hum of Roman life echoed quietly outside his villa, but inside, the world was still. It wasn't the battles or speeches that defined Rome. It was these small rituals, repeated endlessly over generations. The rise of bread with morning steam, the scrolls unrolled in council, the laughter at dinner, the silence of prayer. These things built an empire layer by layer through people like Quintus who simply lived each day with purpose. As the stars moved beyond the hills, the senator slept, unaware that history would one day forget his name. But in this moment, he was Rome, a living pulse within the eternal city, resting now in its timeless rhythm. The city outside waited for the next dawn, where sandals would scuff stone and voices would rise again. Until then, the marble stayed cool, the gardens quiet, and the dreams deep and undisturbed. A final flicker of oil light danced across the walls, then faded into the soft hush of Roman night. The eternal city never truly slept, but it knew how to let its people rest, and somewhere beneath stars and stone, a senator dreamed, peaceful, proud, and perfectly Roman. Thus ends a single day in ancient Rome, quiet, sacred, and beautifully ordinary. As the afternoon sun cast a warm glow over Rome, the senator retreated to his shaded study. Here, amidst scrolls and quiet, he reflected on the morning's debates in the Senate chamber. The air was still, broken only by the soft chirping of birds outside the window. Slaves moved silently, refilling his water jug and adjusting the curtains for comfort. The senator's mind wandered toward matters of land disputes and provincial updates. He read over correspondence from governors, written in detailed yet patient tones. Nothing was urgent. Everything moved slowly, with time as a gentle companion. The smell of old parchment mixed with olive oil candles, a familiar comfort. He scribbled notes with a reed pen, dipping it carefully into dark ink. Outside, The streets buzzed faintly, but in this room, time felt completely still. The senator paused to stand and stretch his limbs with a slow exhale. His tunic brushed softly against the stone floor as he stepped toward the balcony. From here, the rooftops of Rome stretched far into the horizon, terracotta tiles glowing. Smoke from nearby bakeries floated gently into the sky, marking the hour subtly. He leaned on the marble railing, feeling its coolness against his skin. Children laughed somewhere in the distance, their echoes softened by the midday air. The senator often stood here, not to ponder anything deep, but to simply exist. The weight of Rome did not always press heavily. Some days passed like a feather. A slave brought figs and honey on a bronze tray, placed without a word. The senator smiled softly, taking a bite as the breeze nudged his robe. Later a scribe arrived, a young man trained in careful dictation. They worked slowly through letters to allies, magistrates, and distant friends. The senator dictated in a measured voice, pausing often to consider each word. The scribe's stylus scratched against the wax tablet with deliberate precision. No haste was needed. The messages were for men of equal patience. There was a comfort in these formalities, a rhythm to Roman diplomacy. The senator's voice was low, yet steady. Like a slow-moving river outside, the light shifted gradually, forming long shadows on the marble floor. Occasionally, the senator took a sip of wine, letting silence fill the gaps. By the time they finished, the letters felt like well-tuned instruments of peace. Afternoon gave way to early evening, and the house slowly came alive again. Torches were lit in the hallway, casting soft flickers across painted walls. The senator's wife entered, dressed in a flowing stola, her hair adorned with gold pins. They exchanged gentle words about the day, nothing urgent or dramatic. Together they walked through the peristyle garden, where evening flowers began to bloom. The air smelled of lavender and fresh soil, cooled by approaching nightfall. Dinner would be light tonight, perhaps roasted fish with lentils and cheese. A musician played a slow tune in the corner, lyre notes drifting lazily. There was no rush, no noise, only the luxury of a quiet life. They sat side by side, content to share silence more than words. As stars began to appear one by one, servants prepared the sleeping quarters. Soft linens were laid out over the senator's wooden-framed bed. The oil lamps flickered gently, creating shadows that danced along the ceiling. He took a final walk through the atrium, feeling the cool tiles beneath his sandals. The household pets curled up near the door, already in slumber. He whispered a short prayer to the household gods, a ritual of habit. The senator's mind was not troubled. He had done what was expected today. He changed slowly into his night garments, savoring the rhythm of routine. The bed creaked softly as he lay down, staring up at the darkened rafters. Soon the house fell into complete stillness, as the city whispered itself to sleep. Somewhere beyond the city walls, wolves howled faintly beneath the moon, but here in the heart of Rome, peace wrapped around the home like a blanket. Guards outside shifted occasionally, their armor softly clinking in the night. Inside, dreams were quiet and slow, filled with images of olive trees and stars. The senator's chest rose and fell with steady rhythm, undisturbed. His thoughts drifted, not with anxiety, but with gentle curiosity. What would the morrow bring? Another meeting? A visit from an old friend? The answers could wait. Nothing urgent ever arrived before breakfast. In the distance, a rooster crowed too early, then fell silent again. Sleep held the house like a spell, deep and undemanding elsewhere in the city. Others, too, had retired into their evening rituals. From noblemen to potters, from bakers to temple keepers, all slowed with dusk. Torches along the roads burned low, watched by yawning sentries. The city of Rome never fully slept, but it knew how to be quiet. Even the Tiber River moved more slowly under the moon's pale gaze. Ships swayed gently at the docks, ropes creaking softly against wooden posts. Above all this, stars wheeled silently through the Roman sky. The senator, unaware, remained lost in the hush of dreams. He dreamt not of war or glory, but of vineyards and calm waters. And so the night passed on, tender and uneventful. In the far-off provinces, news moved slowly, traveling days or weeks. But here, inside these walls, the pace of life remained deliberate. The senator's household functioned like a well-oiled mechanism of tradition. No surprises, no commotion, only the comfortable rhythm of old routines. Meals, discussions, rest, reading, each had its place, its time. Every hour felt accounted for, yet never burdensome. Even boredom was welcomed, as it meant there was no trouble. He would wake tomorrow to the same scent of bread and olive oil. The sky would glow again with pink and amber, like today, and the senator would rise, calm and rested, ready to begin anew. The senator stirred as morning's light crept gently across his face. Birds chirped again outside, heralding another cycle of Roman time. A slave pulled back the curtain, letting in the soft glow of dawn. He sat up slowly, stretching his arms like a man in no hurry. There was no alarm, no shouting, only the murmur of water from the fountain. His wife still slept, curled beneath the linen blanket with a peaceful expression. The day would begin, like all others, with calm certainty. He slipped on his tunic and sandals, moving with deliberate ease. Another scroll, another visitor, another slow debate awaited him. And in that repetition he found comfort. Not excitement, but peace. The life of a Roman senator was not one of drama, but of enduring calm. It was a role built on expectation, balance, and unspoken responsibility. No part of his day was wasted, yet nothing felt rushed. He ate without urgency, spoke without force, and slept without worry. Rome moved like a beast at rest, powerful yet composed, and its senators mirrored that rhythm, stable and steady. In a world that whispered of wars and politics, this man stood still, not out of ignorance, but out of practiced discipline. He did what was required, and then he simply existed. That was the Roman way, graceful, predictable, and timeless. The sun began its slow descent, casting golden hues across the marble floors of the senator's villa. As twilight settled in, servants moved quietly, lighting oil lamps that flickered softly against the richly painted walls. The senator removed his outer cloak and exchanged it for a more comfortable linen tunic suitable for the evening outside. The air was cooler now, and the scent of citrus blossoms from the courtyard floated gently inside. His wife, Livia, greeted him with a soft smile as she entered the atrium. They spoke in low voices, discussing the day's small matters over a bowl of olives and dates. A distant flute echoed from the slave quarters. A slow, melancholic tune. Livia mentioned the children's progress with their Greek tutor, which brought a warm laugh from the senator. Despite the weariness of politics, these moments brought him peace. The worries of the forum slowly faded as home embraced him. The household was a sanctuary from the city's endless debates. Dinner was a modest affair by Roman elite standards, yet still luxurious compared to the average citizen. The triclinium was set with soft cushions, silverware, and ceramic platters of stewed lentils, roasted vegetables, and fish. A jug of chilled Falernian wine sat on the table, breathing in the warm air. As the senator reclined on his left side, a young servant poured his drink with careful precision. Across from him, Livia shared a story about a merchant's son caught sneaking into the city's theater. Their conversation was slow and casual, designed more to soothe the nerves than to inform. The senator chewed thoughtfully, letting the food and wine dull the last of the day's sharp thoughts. Outside the window, the moon was rising above the rooftops, casting pale light over the courtyard tiles. Another servant arrived with figs and honey for dessert. The senator felt the quiet rhythm of home settling around him like a familiar cloak. Here his mind could rest. After the meal, the senator retired to his study, an airy room lined with scrolls, busts of philosophers, and maps of the empire. He lit a single oil lamp and sat beside his writing table, which bore the faint scent of wax and old ink. With a practiced hand, he began scribbling notes onto a wax tablet, reflections of the day, ideas for a new speech, and a few lines of copied Stoic philosophy. Silence blanketed the room, broken only by the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway. On a high shelf sat a carved statuette of Minerva, goddess of wisdom, watching over the senator's nightly work. He paused occasionally to rub his eyes and take a sip of herbal tea brought by a servant. The simple act of writing calmed his thoughts. Outside, crickets chirped steadily. The night was deepening, and even the busy streets of Rome had quieted. The senator was alone with his thoughts, and that solitude brought him rare contentment. As the oil lamp burned low, the senator stepped out into the colonnaded garden at the back of the villa. The cool air kissed his face, and he looked up at the stars, finding comfort in their quiet permanence. The night sky stretched endlessly, reminding him that even the mighty Roman Empire was just a moment in time. Marble columns cast long shadows across the tiled path, and the soft trickling of a fountain echoed through the garden. He walked slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, contemplating the balance of power, virtue, and legacy. Somewhere beyond the city walls, legions marched, provinces whispered of rebellion, and merchants sought new routes. But in this quiet space, those things felt distant. The senator inhaled deeply and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the cycle would begin again, but tonight, under the stars, he allowed himself to simply exist. And in that stillness, he found something rare: peace. Returning to his sleeping quarters, the senator found Livia already resting beneath a light wool blanket. The room was softly illuminated by a single flickering lamp, casting gentle shadows on the painted ceiling. He removed his sandals and lay beside her, the mattress of straw and down cradling his tired frame. Livia murmured something about tomorrow's visit to her sister's villa, and he responded with a nod and a gentle smile. Sleep was not far now. His limbs heavy, his thoughts quieted, a breeze passed through the open window, rustling the sheer curtains somewhere. A dog barked once and then fell silent. The senator closed his eyes, surrendering to the rhythm of the night. The world of ambition, law, and politics slipped away as dreams approached. His breathing slowed, and Livia's hand found his beneath the covers. In this moment, their world was small, simple, and safe. Rome could wait. Sleep was here. Far across the city, the Tiber River shimmered under the moonlight, its waters whispering secrets of centuries past. The senator's villa was just one among thousands, each holding lives full of stories, dreams, and quiet hopes. The guards at the city gates dozed lightly, their torches flickering in the wind. A street cat wandered across a silent alley, unseen by all. In the palace, the emperor himself slept, perhaps dreaming of conquest or betrayal. And yet, in the senator's home, the stillness of the night remained unbroken. Within those walls, the rise and fall of empires seemed like distant echoes. Only the soft breath of sleep, the creak of wood, and the hum of crickets spoke. The story of Rome was grand and vast, but here in this quiet corner of the city, the story of one man and his family gently unfolded. Tomorrow, history would continue, but tonight it simply rested. And so ends a day in the life of a Roman senator, not with fanfare or fireworks, but with the soft hush of dreams. In the stillness of the villa, time slowed. The lamp's flame flickered once more before extinguishing, and the shadows embraced the room. Somewhere, a child turned in her sleep. A slave whispered a prayer to the household gods. The senator dreamed of fields beyond the city and marble halls where justice reigned. His body, worn from duty, lay still. The city that never truly slept continued its quiet song. But for him, there was only this moment, timeless and unburdened. History would remember wars and victories, names carved into stone, but the true essence of Rome was found here in peace, in simplicity, in silence. The night deepened, wrapping the house in darkness and calm. One man among many, sleeping beneath the stars of an eternal city. And in that silence Rome breathed, as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting a golden hue across the tiled rooftops. Senator Marcus returned to his private study. This room, lined with scrolls and illuminated by oil lamps, was his sanctuary, his mind's retreat after the demands of public life. He gently removed his senator's cloak, folded it with care, and placed it atop a wooden chest carved with family symbols. In the silence, he unrolled a fresh scroll from Alexandria, eager to read the latest philosophical reflections. The words soothed him. Discussions on fate, justice, and the balance of power between men and gods. A scribe's note caught his eye, reminding him of correspondence yet to be answered. Dozens of letters from allies and rivals alike. He dipped his reed pen in ink and began to write responses. One slow line at a time, his calligraphy elegant and precise. Each reply required thought, diplomacy, and subtlety. Any word could be interpreted politically. This late-night ritual was more than duty. It was an intellectual exercise, a mental preparation for tomorrow. Outside, crickets chirped and a cool breeze whispered through the open window, bringing the scent of distant olives. His youngest son, Lucius, padded softly into the room, barefoot and sleepy-eyed, clutching a small wooden soldier. "Father, will you tell me about the war with the Carthaginians again?" he whispered, curling onto a cushioned bench. Marcus smiled gently, setting his pen aside, his voice low and calm as he began to recount ancient battles. He described brave legions, cunning generals, and the immense ships that sailed from Rome to distant shores. Lucius's eyes grew heavy as the tale unfolded, lulled by the rhythm of his father's voice and the flickering lamplight. As the story ended with the triumph of Rome, the boy's breathing slowed, deep and peaceful in sleep. Marcus tucked a woolen cloth around him, heart warmed by the quiet bond of history and family. This too was Rome, heritage passed not just through laws, but through bedtime stories and memory. He returned to his scrolls with a sense of contentment, knowing that tomorrow Lucius would ask for another story. Such moments reminded him why he served, not just for politics, but for the future his children would inherit. At last, the hour grew late, and Marcus extinguished the final lamp, the room now bathed in soft starlight. He stepped into the quiet courtyard, gazing upward where Jupiter and Mars gleamed in the Roman sky. The world felt still, heavy with the silence of midnight and the distant murmur of the Tiber River. He offered a whispered prayer to the gods, for wisdom, strength, and peace in the days to come. The marble floor cooled his feet as he lingered a moment longer, soaking in the calm of the ancient city. A servant waited by the door with a final cup of warm, honeyed wine, which Marcus accepted gratefully. With slow steps, he made his way to his sleeping chamber, where his wife already dreamed in silence. The bed was simple yet elegant, draped in linen, warmed by woven blankets from Hispania. He laid down, exhaled deeply, and closed his eyes, not just to sleep, but to rest the senator's soul. Outside, Rome breathed on, its streets quiet, its legacy secure, as another long day in the empire drew to a close. As dusk crept gently over the red-tiled roofs of Rome, Senator Lucius gazed from his terrace, watching the warm hues wash over the city. The hum of street chatter faded beneath the soft hush of twilight. He felt a deep satisfaction in the quiet, the kind only a long, ritual-filled day could earn. Slaves lit lanterns across the villa, casting soft amber glows on marble pillars. Lucius turned back to his scrolls, not to read but merely to organize them, one of his daily calming rituals. He found peace in this predictability. The sound of sandals brushing stone echoed faintly outside. Birds settled in olive trees nearby. The day had been long, yet gentle. He thought of his ancestors, also senators, who once stood where he stood now. That legacy, he believed, was worth the quiet wait a servant entered with a basin of perfumed water, as was tradition before evening rest. Lucius dipped his fingers, inhaling the calming scent of lavender and olive. His hands, once ink-stained from letters to the emperor, now rested calmly on the table. He had lived a life of public service, yet in the soft moments he valued silence more than speeches. His dog, Brutus, a loyal hound, lay curled by the column. A gentle breeze lifted the linen curtains. Rome at night was slower, more poetic. He knew the streets beyond bustled, but here all stood still. He stretched, joints softly cracking, and leaned back. The stars were beginning to emerge, dim at first. Another scroll was rolled and tied. The day was officially done. And with it, a senator's mind slowly drifted toward dreams. Night in the villa was structured like the day. Only quieter oil lamps burned low, their flickers dancing against the frescoed walls. Lucius walked barefoot to his inner chambers, the cool mosaic tiles grounding him. He passed busts of old ancestors, stone eyes watching the generations unfold. His wife, Flavia, was already preparing for sleep, brushing her hair by torchlight. They exchanged a glance, soft, familiar, no need for words. Their years had woven a rhythm, quiet, dependable outside. The hoot of an owl echoed across the garden. The garden itself was still, save for the rustle of fig leaves. Rome, a city of marble and might, could be gentle too. Lucius folded his senator's robe and set it aside. Beneath the power and protocol, he was just a man, winding down like everyone else. His bed was simple, despite his rank, cedar-framed with fine linens but lacking in luxury excess. Lucius believed comfort did not require indulgence. He lay down slowly, stretching his back, exhaling deeply. A servant entered quietly, offering warm milk with a hint of honey. A nightly ritual. He sipped it slowly, savoring the soothing warmth. The candles were dimmed. One by one, shadows grew longer across the floor. In the distance, temple bells marked the hour, soft, measured tones. He thought briefly of tomorrow, the forums, the debates, the plebs and patricians, but the thoughts didn't weigh heavy tonight. Sleep's invitation was too soft to resist. Brutus shifted slightly, sensing his master's stillness. And just like that, Lucius slipped into the gentle embrace of the Roman night. Dreams in Rome, they said, were filled with echoes of gods, of battles, of ancestors whispering wisdom. Lucius's mind wandered through marble halls that shimmered with memory. He saw his father teaching him to read Cicero. He heard the Senate chambers humming with oration. But the dreams were not loud. They drifted like smoke, never unsettling. The rhythm of a calm heart, a well-lived day, echoed into his slumber. Even the empire rested sometimes. Even emperors and senators shared the same nighttime silence. A soft thunder rolled over the hills, a summer storm approaching, perhaps. But Lucius did not stir. He was home, not just in his villa, but in his time, in his purpose, and above all, in his peace. The night outside continued its quiet rule. The moon glided high over Rome, bathing the rooftops in silver calm. Guards at the city gates paced slowly, lanterns in hand. From the Palatine Hill to the far streets of Trastevere, the city exhaled. Even the Tiber River moved slower under starlight. Lucius dreamed on, unaware of time's passage. The creak of a branch, the chirp of a night cricket, small reminders that life continued softly. Above, constellations formed stories once told by poets. The air smelled faintly of jasmine from the garden. The villa's courtyard fountains trickled. A lullaby in stone sleep ruled the night as firmly as Caesar ruled the Senate. And Lucius, in this deep peace, remained still. His dreams now took him to green hills outside the city, where politics had no place, only sun and breeze. In his dream, Lucius walked beside his son, teaching him about the Republic. The child asked questions with wide eyes, curious and bright. "Why do we serve, Father? To preserve what we love." Lucius answered, though imaginary. The moment felt vivid. The path wound through vineyards and olive groves. The sky was always blue in dreams. The weight of the Senate, the decisions, the speeches all seemed far away now. There was only quiet mentorship. Lucius paused beneath a fig tree, resting in the shade. He looked over the land that had given him everything, and hoped to give more in return. The dream blurred into color and light, but the feeling of passing on wisdom, of legacy stayed. It echoed in the chambers of his sleeping heart. Outside, Rome's aqueducts hummed with silent life, delivering water to its millions. The city, engineered with brilliance, slept with its people. Lucius turned once in his bed, the linen rustling softly. The night grew cooler, but the thick walls of the villa kept the chill at bay. In dreams, he now stood in the Senate, but empty, silent. The marble columns cast long shadows, and not a voice was heard. It wasn't eerie, it was peaceful, a monument to thought, not argument. He sat in his seat, listening to silence, a senator at peace with quiet time, in dreams. Folds gently, Lucius felt no need to speak, only to exist. Somewhere, the rooster crowed but faintly. The day approached, yet for now, the night still held him gently. Morning in Rome would return, as always, with its bustle, politics, chariots, and concerns. But Lucius remained asleep, his breath slow, his posture relaxed. The fire in the wall sconce had burned down to embers, a thin wisp of smoke curled upwards, fading into the stone ceiling. The garden outside was covered in dew, silver under the moon. No urgent messengers, no debates, just stillness. Brutus shifted once more, now fully asleep. In dreams, Lucius stood on a hill, watching Rome from afar. Its domes, arches, and temples spread like a mosaic of memory. A soft wind brushed his cheek, or was it the breeze of his open window? It didn't matter, for in this moment, Lucius was neither awake nor fully asleep, just suspended in serenity. And so, the day of a Roman senator, long, layered, and full of tradition, ended not with a grand speech, but with sleep. Peaceful, deep, unbroken sleep, the kind that followed duty fulfilled and rituals observed. Rome, with all her glory and weight, had paused just for a few hours, until dawn stirred the stones again. Lucius, nestled beneath linen, wore no toga now, held no scroll, gave no orders. Only his breath moved, and with each slow inhale, a civilization slept beside him. Quiet, enduring, eternal. This, more than battles or laws, was Rome's true rhythm. Not the shout, but the silence, not the marble, but the dreams behind it. And as the moon lowered behind the Capitol, a senator simply slept, and Rome slept with him. The senator leaned against a marble column, watching the orange sunset spread across the Roman rooftops. He took a deep breath, the air carrying the scent of olive, smoke, and sea salt. Slaves moved silently in the courtyard, lighting torches with practiced ease. The senator's thoughts turned to his youth, the games in the forum. The first time he wore a toga. Age brought wisdom, but also a gentle sadness, a longing for days past. Still, he was proud of Rome, of his family, of the role he played in the Senate. The chirping of cicadas began to rise, blending with distant laughter from the street. A servant handed him warm wine, and he took a slow sip, savoring the flavor of spiced Falernian. The city calmed as night approached, the chaos of the day giving way to quiet dignity. He stood still, lost in thought, as the world softened into stars and silence. Dinner was set in the triclinium, the reclining room for evening meals. 3 couches formed a horseshoe around a low table, filled with dishes of lentils, fish, and dates. Lanterns flickered against frescoed walls, casting golden shadows of Roman heroes. The senator's son, now a grown man, joined him, confident, curious, and full of questions. They spoke of laws, of politics, of poetry, the rhythm of Roman life. Slaves poured watered wine into silver cups and passed around honeyed almonds. A musician played a soft tune on the lyre, creating a dreamlike atmosphere. There were no arguments tonight, only warmth, stories, and shared memories. As the meal ended, the senator raised a toast to the empire and to peace. Even in a world of power, it was these quiet evenings that he cherished most. After dinner, the senator walked slowly through his garden, the air cool against his robe. Statues of gods stood among flowering shrubs and carved fountains. He stopped at the altar of Vesta, whispering a brief prayer for his household's safety. The flame there never died, just as Rome must never fall. In the silence, he could hear water trickling and leaves rustling in the breeze. He picked a fig from the tree, tasting its sweet flesh under the moonlight. Every step reminded him of Rome's beauty, not just in marble, but in stillness. He was a senator, yes, but also a man who appreciated the simple pleasures. It was these moments that gave life meaning far beyond the forum's debates. And as stars blinked above, he gave thanks for the gift of the day. In his private study, the senator reviewed tomorrow's agenda written on wax tablets. Disputes over water rights, tax proposals, and grain shipments from Egypt awaited him. He sighed, already anticipating the noise of debate and the pressure to choose wisely. But he had experience and a calm mind sharpened over decades of public life. Scrolls lined the shelves, histories, laws, philosophy, and Virgil's verses. He dipped his stylus in ink and wrote a short note to a friend in the provinces. Even in old age, correspondence was a cherished ritual of connection. He rubbed his eyes, tired but fulfilled by the day's progress. The oil lamp flickered beside him, its glow wrapping the room in warmth. Outside, Rome rested, and soon, so would he. His slave Lucius entered quietly to help him prepare for bed. The senator removed his toga, folding it neatly and placing it aside. A linen tunic replaced the day's garments, soft and cool to the touch. Lucius placed a bowl of scented water by the bed, for his master's hands. The senator dipped his fingers, letting the fragrance of lavender ease his senses. A bronze charm of Fortuna, the goddess of luck, hung beside the bedpost. He touched it lightly, whispering a hope for the strength to serve well tomorrow. The room was quiet, the walls thick with the hush of stone and years. Lucius bowed and left, the door closing with a gentle thud. Alone, the senator climbed into bed, his mind finally beginning to drift. Lying in the quiet dark, he listened to the soft creak of wooden beams overhead. The chirp of night insects outside the villa blended into a peaceful hum. His breathing slowed, matching the calm of the sleeping city around him. Thoughts floated like clouds, disjointed images of forums, temples, and family. He remembered his father's voice, now only an echo in memory. The cool sheets wrapped him like a toga of dreams. He let go of tomorrow's burdens, of politics and the weight of Rome. Tonight there were no citizens to serve, no speeches to deliver, only the hush of time moving silently forward. And as sleep crept over him, he smiled, knowing he had lived with purpose. In the silence of the night, the villa seemed to breathe with history. Stone walls that had seen decades now stood guard over a sleeping senator. Outside, the moon drifted between clouds, casting silver light on the tiled roof. The garden, now still, held secrets whispered only to the stars. Every leaf, every shadow seemed part of a timeless rhythm. A dog barked distantly in the Subura district, quickly falling quiet again. Even the city's usual clamor was hushed, respectful of night's embrace. In his dreams, the senator walked the streets of a younger Rome. He spoke with philosophers and stood on hills watching temples rise. Sleep brought no fear, only the gentle weight of legacy. Hours passed unnoticed in deep, unbroken rest. In another room, the night guards kept their quiet watch. Oil lamps flickered low, casting golden halos on plastered walls. A sudden breeze carried the scent of laurel through open windows. Birds shifted in their nests, sensing dawn somewhere beyond the dark. The senator's face, even in sleep, held the calm of a life well led. His chest rose and fell in the same rhythm as the city's breath. It was in these hours, free from debate, from duty, that truth revealed itself. He dreamed of triumphs and tears, of roads stretching endlessly, and somewhere in those dreams, Rome continued eternal and proud. Slowly, morning began to touch the sky with faint strokes of light. A servant stirred in the courtyard, beginning the day's quiet preparations. The senator slept still, unaware of time's gentle progression. Dew settled on vines and marble, giving the world a silvery shimmer. The temple bells had not yet rung, but the city was beginning to stretch. Another day in Rome waited, filled with tasks, laws, and decisions. But for a moment more, silence ruled. The world honored the last fragments of night. Even the gods, it seemed, were quiet. And the senator, wrapped in dreams, rested deeply still. Soon he would rise, don his toga, and return to the business of the empire. The sun would rise high, and Rome would wake in full glory. But right now, the world stayed wrapped in velvet shadows. A single bird called out, announcing the coming of light. Servants would light the hearth, open the shutters, and prepare his bath. But for now, all was peace. all was stillness. The story of his day would begin again, just as it always had. And in this moment, he belonged to neither past nor future. He floated between thought and rest, in the embrace of quiet time. The life of a Roman senator, both powerful and peaceful, continued gently on. As dusk approached, the senator returned to his private chamber, the torches along the corridor casting flickering shadows. He carefully removed his senatorial toga, folding it neatly over a cedarwood bench. Servants lit oil lamps and gently placed a warm cloth on his shoulders. He sat in quiet solitude, sipping mulled wine from a silver goblet. Outside, Rome continued its steady hum, chariots, merchants, and watchmen shifting into their nighttime rhythm. He reflected on the day's decisions, land reforms, court verdicts, and temple affairs. The senator's mind wandered to his youth, remembering his first debate in the Forum. He had come a long way from an ambitious student to a respected statesman. But with age came a yearning for quiet, for simplicity that no wealth could buy. A scribe entered silently, ready to note tomorrow's schedule before nightfall. The senator's wife entered the room, dressed in a flowing stola embroidered with golden thread. She greeted him with a soft smile, placing her hand gently on his. Together, they sat by the balcony, overlooking the flickering city lanterns. Their children's laughter echoed from another part of the villa, a comfort amidst duty. He told her of the poor farmer he met that morning and how it moved him deeply. She encouraged him to pursue a law for fairer taxation. He nodded, already planning his next Senate speech with quiet conviction. They shared figs and honeyed cheese, a modest meal before sleep. In their shared silence was understanding of love, service, and impermanence. Night blanketed Rome, the city whispering old stories in the wind. As the stars brightened over the eternal city, the senator dismissed his final attendants. The marble floors echoed under his sandals as he walked through the dim corridors. He entered the family shrine, kneeling before a statue of Vesta, goddess of the hearth. There he offered prayers not just for his house, but for Rome itself. Candles flickered beside votive offerings, olive oil, flowers, small coins. His voice was soft, almost inaudible, reciting the same words his father once taught him. He lit incense and bowed deeply, feeling the sacred stillness envelop him. Moments like these reminded him of Rome's greatness not in conquest, but in faith. He believed deeply in the Republic's divine favor and duty to the people. With his rituals complete, he felt ready to rest. Back in his sleeping quarters, the senator prepared for bed, his body weary. He lay upon a low, cushioned platform, draped in linen dyed with indigo. A slave entered quietly with lavender-scented water, washing his feet gently. He whispered thanks, eyes half closed, the weight of the day lifting slowly. His wife sat beside him briefly, brushing his hair with her fingers. They spoke softly of nothing urgent dreams, the sound of the fountain outside, childhood stories. Soon, only the gentle rhythm of breathing filled the chamber. Torches were snuffed, one by one, leaving only the moonlight. The villa quieted completely. No footsteps, no voices, only night. Sleep came not as escape, but as a peaceful end to purposeful hours. In dreams, the senator walked again through the Forum, now empty and still. Marble columns stretched endlessly, voices of old orators echoing faintly. He saw faces, ancestors, rivals, citizens, each fading into mist. The dream was gentle, not surreal, like drifting through memory. He wandered past temples, olive trees, and statues, alone but calm. In the distance, a flame burned steadily atop the temple of Vesta. He approached it, heart full of reverence, sensing its warmth. It was not fire he feared, but forgetting duty, legacy, Rome. He reached out to the flame, not to touch, but to remember. Then he awoke, the sound of birds announcing dawn's return. Sunlight spilled through the atrium as servants opened the villa's shutters. The senator stretched, feeling the ache of years but also the strength of purpose. Another day awaited another scroll to read, case to judge, temple to visit. He rose slowly, bathed in warm water, dressed in fresh linen. The city had changed overnight, slightly a new rumor, a fallen tree, a birth. He greeted his family, embracing each child with familiar affection. His youngest asked about the forum again, eyes wide with curiosity. He promised to take her soon, to show her where voices shape Rome. Breakfast was quiet bread, grapes, goat cheese, and dates. The morning sun cast golden hues across the villa's frescoes. The senator mounted his litter, borne by 4 strong men, and left for the curia. Citizens bowed as he passed, some whispering his name with admiration. He remained humble, always aware that favor could change with a single vote. The forum was already alive, vendors shouting, philosophers debating, guards patrolling. As he stepped out, he inhaled the city's air, dusty, warm, familiar. He adjusted his toga, smoothed his brow, and walked with steady grace. Another day of Rome's history would unfold, and he would play his part. He listened to a baker's complaint, noted a poet's request for funding. He greeted fellow senators, discussing yesterday's debate with calm authority. The chamber doors opened, and the day's session began. Today's topics: expansion of aqueducts, reform of military pensions, and temple repairs. He listened intently, occasionally standing to offer wisdom drawn from decades of service. Not all senators agreed, but most respected his fairness and clarity. He referenced history often, reminding the chamber of past mistakes and triumphs. His voice was firm but measured, commanding, yet never arrogant. Even the younger senators took note, learning from his example. At one point, a heated argument broke out, but he calmed the room. "Let Rome speak through reason, not wrath," he said, and silence followed. By late afternoon, several decrees were finalized, consensus achieved. He left the chamber proud, not of victory but of harmony. Outside, the city buzzed under the lowering sun, another day nearing its end. The senator stopped by a small temple, offering thanks for wisdom and peace. A crowd gathered nearby to hear a street poet recite verses. He listened, smiled, and dropped a coin into the performer's bowl. Then he visited an ailing friend, bringing figs and calming words. Service extended beyond politics. Kindness was part of the Republic's strength. As torches lit the streets again, he made his way home. Children greeted him with painted scrolls and stories of their games. His wife welcomed him with a warm embrace, her eyes full of pride. And once again, the villa glowed with quiet peace. That night, the senator stood alone in his garden, looking up at the stars. He whispered a prayer, not for power, but for Rome's enduring light. He thought of all he had seen: wars, festivals, laws, love, loss. And he knew Rome was not just stone and senate, it was spirit. A spirit carried by every citizen, servant, soldier, and dreamer. He closed his eyes, feeling that spirit in the cool breeze. Tomorrow would come with new challenges, new voices, new choices. But tonight, he rested in the comfort of a life of meaning, a day in the life of a Roman senator, not grand, but full. And in that fullness, he found peace.